In the dead of night, when hope seemed lost and death knocked at the door, an unlikely guardian angel appeared on four legs. What started as a routine patrol in the mountains of Colorado would become a story that would forever change how an entire police department viewed the bond between humans and animals. This is not just a tale of survival, but a testament to the extraordinary intelligence and loyalty that exists in creatures we often take for granted. The snow fell in thick, relentless sheets across the Rocky Mountain wilderness, turning the familiar patrol route into an alien landscape. Officer Marcus Thompson gripped the steering wheel of his patrol car tighter as the windshield wipers struggled against the accumulating snow. It was November 15th, 2019, and what had started as a routine evening patrol through the mountain passes of Jefferson County, Colorado, was quickly becoming something far more dangerous. Marcus had been with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office for 8 years, and he knew these mountain roads like the back of his hand. The winding paths that cut through the dense pine forest were treacherous even in good weather. But tonight, the early winter storm had transformed them into a death trap. Weather reports had predicted light snow, but nature had other plans. The storm had intensified rapidly, catching everyone off guard. At 34 years old, Marcus was known among his colleagues as steady and reliable. He had a wife, Sarah, and 2 young children waiting for him at home in Lakewood. His radio crackled with periodic check-ins from dispatch, but the storm was beginning to interfere with communications. Static filled the airways more frequently, and Marcus found himself having to repeat his position reports. The call came in at 9:47 p.m. A stranded motorist on Highway 285 near the Kenosha Pass area. An elderly man whose car had slid into a ditch during the storm. It should have been a simple assistance call, but as Marcus made his way toward the location, the weather conditions continued to deteriorate rapidly. Visibility dropped to mere feet in front of his patrol car. The snow was coming down so heavily that his headlights seemed to create a wall of white in front of him. Marcus slowed to a crawl, following the barely visible yellow lines on the road. He had driven this route hundreds of times, but tonight it felt like navigating through a maze blindfolded. The radio transmission about the stranded motorist had been broken and filled with static. Marcus wasn't entirely sure of the exact location, but he pressed forward, knowing that someone was out there in this storm, possibly in serious danger. The temperature was dropping quickly, and anyone stranded outside for too long could face hypothermia, or worse. As he rounded a sharp curve near mile marker 204, something went wrong. Perhaps it was a patch of black ice hidden beneath the snow, or maybe the road shoulder had given way under the weight of accumulated snow and ice. Marcus felt the patrol car suddenly lose traction. The steering wheel spun uselessly in his hands as the vehicle began to slide sideways. Time seemed to slow down as Marcus fought to regain control. The car skidded across the narrow mountain road, heading directly toward a steep embankment that dropped down into a ravine filled with tall pine trees. Marcus could see the edge approaching through his side window, and he knew that once the car went over, there would be no chance of survival. The patrol car hit the embankment and became airborne for what felt like an eternity. Marcus braced himself for impact, thinking of Sarah and his children, wondering if this was how his story would end. The car crashed through several small pine trees before finally coming to rest against a large boulder, approximately 30 feet down the steep slope. The impact was devastating. The airbag deployed, slamming into Marcus's chest and face. His head struck the side window, and pain shot through his left shoulder and ribs. The patrol car had landed at an awkward angle, tilted heavily to the driver's side, making it difficult for Marcus to move or orient himself. For several minutes, Marcus remained motionless, trying to assess his injuries and situation. His head was spinning, and he could taste blood in his mouth. His left arm was completely numb, and sharp pain shot through his ribs every time he tried to breathe deeply. The car's engine had died on impact, and the headlights flickered intermittently before going out completely, plunging him into total darkness. Marcus reached for his radio with his good arm, but found that it had been damaged in the crash. The device was cracked and unresponsive. He tried his cell phone, but there was no signal this deep in the mountains, especially during the storm. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He was completely cut off from help, injured, and trapped in his patrol car during a blizzard. The temperature inside the car began to drop rapidly. Without the engine running, there was no heat, and Marcus could already feel the cold seeping through his uniform. Snow was beginning to accumulate on the windshield and windows, further isolating him from the outside world. He knew that if he couldn't find a way to signal for help or get to safety, he would not survive the night. Marcus tried to open the driver's side door, but it was wedged against the boulder that had stopped his descent. The passenger side was tilted up at such an angle that he couldn't reach it easily with his injured arm. He was effectively trapped inside the vehicle. Panic began to set in as the gravity of his situation became clear. Hours passed, though Marcus had lost track of time. The cold was becoming unbearable, and he was beginning to feel drowsy, a dangerous sign that hypothermia was setting in. He forced himself to stay awake, knowing that falling asleep in these conditions could be fatal. He moved his feet and good arm constantly to maintain circulation, but he could feel his strength ebbing away. It was sometime after midnight when Marcus first heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the storm. Through the howling wind and falling snow, he heard what sounded like footsteps crunching through the snow nearby. At first he thought his mind was playing tricks on him, that the cold and possible head injury were causing him to hallucinate. But then he heard it again, closer this time. Definitely footsteps, but they seemed too light to be human. Marcus pressed his face against the passenger side window, trying to peer through the snow-covered glass. A shadow moved past the car, and then another. Suddenly, a face appeared at the passenger window. But it wasn't a human face. It was the face of a large dog. A German shepherd, to be exact, with intelligent brown eyes that seemed to be studying Marcus intently. The dog's fur was covered with snow, suggesting it had been wandering in the storm for some time. Marcus couldn't believe what he was seeing. What was a dog doing out here in the middle of a blizzard, miles from any houses or civilization? The nearest town was at least 15 miles away, and there were no residential areas anywhere near this stretch of highway. The dog appeared to be alone, with no owner in sight. The German shepherd moved around the car, apparently trying to find a way to reach Marcus. It pawed at the snow around the driver's side door, and even attempted to dig through the accumulated snow near the wheels. The dog's behavior was unlike anything Marcus had ever witnessed. It seemed to understand that there was a person in trouble inside the vehicle. Marcus tried to tap on the window to get the dog's attention, but his movements were weak and clumsy due to his injuries and the cold. The German shepherd heard the sound and returned to the passenger window, pressing its nose against the glass. The dog's breath created small circles of fog on the window, and Marcus could see the animal's eyes clearly. There was something remarkable about those eyes. They weren't the vacant stare of a confused or frightened animal. Instead, they showed intelligence, determination, and what Marcus could only describe as concern. The dog seemed to be assessing the situation and trying to figure out how to help. The German shepherd disappeared from view for several minutes, and Marcus began to worry that the animal had moved on. But then he heard scraping and digging sounds coming from near the rear of the car. The dog was apparently trying to dig through the snow that had accumulated around the vehicle. Marcus was amazed by the animal's persistence. Most wild or stray animals would have simply moved on when they encountered an obstacle like a crashed car, but this dog was different. It seemed determined to find a way to help, even though it didn't know Marcus and had no apparent reason to risk its own safety in the storm. The digging continued for what felt like hours. Marcus could hear the dog working tirelessly, occasionally stopping to bark or whine, as if calling for additional help that would never come. The sound of the animal's efforts gave Marcus hope and helped him stay conscious during the long, cold night. As dawn began to break through the storm clouds, Marcus could see more clearly through the car windows. The snow had stopped falling as heavily, though the wind continued to howl through the trees. The German shepherd was still there, now covered in snow and ice, but still working to clear snow away from around the car. The dog had managed to dig out much of the snow from around the passenger side of the vehicle, and Marcus realized that it might now be possible to open that door. With great effort and considerable pain, he managed to crawl across the car's interior to the passenger side. His left arm was still useless, but he was able to use his right arm to try the door handle. The door opened with some difficulty, and cold air rushed into the vehicle. The German shepherd immediately moved closer, its tail wagging slightly despite the harsh conditions. Marcus had never been so happy to see another living creature in his entire life. The dog seemed to sense that Marcus was injured and in distress. Instead of jumping into the car or acting aggressively, the German shepherd approached slowly and gently. It sniffed at Marcus's outstretched hand and then lay down in the snow near the open car door, as if standing guard. Marcus tried to speak to the dog, though his voice was hoarse and weak from the cold. "Hey there, boy," he whispered. "Where did you come from?" The German shepherd's ears perked up at the sound of his voice, and the dog moved slightly closer. Despite his injuries and exhaustion, Marcus felt a surge of hope. He was no longer alone in this wilderness. This remarkable animal had found him and had spent the night trying to help him survive. But Marcus knew that his ordeal was far from over. He was still miles from help, injured and without any means of communication. The storm might have lessened, but he was still in serious danger. The German Shepherd seemed to sense Marcus's continued distress. The dog stood up and moved away from the car, looking back at Marcus as if trying to communicate something. Then the animal began to bark, not the aggressive bark of a guard dog, but a distinctive rhythmic barking that seemed almost like a signal. Marcus watched in amazement as the German Shepherd continued this pattern of barking while looking directly at him. It was as if the dog was trying to tell him something, trying to convey a message that Marcus couldn't quite understand. But one thing was clear: this animal had not given up on helping him survive. As the morning light grew stronger, Marcus got a better look at his canine rescuer. The German Shepherd was large and appeared to be in good physical condition, despite being alone in the wilderness. Its coat was thick and well suited for cold weather, but Marcus could see that the animal was thin, suggesting it had been living on its own for some time. There was no collar around the dog's neck, no identification tags or any sign that it belonged to anyone. This was clearly a stray animal, possibly abandoned or lost, now surviving on its own in one of the most unforgiving environments in Colorado. But what struck Marcus most was the dog's behavior. This wasn't a wild animal acting on instinct. The German Shepherd was displaying problem-solving skills, empathy, and a level of intelligence that Marcus had never witnessed before. The dog had found him in the middle of a blizzard, had worked through the night to try to free him from the car, and was now apparently trying to communicate a plan for getting help. Marcus knew that he needed to try to move, to find a way to signal for rescue, or make his way to safety. But he was weak, injured, and disoriented. The cold had sapped much of his strength, and his left arm was still completely numb. He wasn't sure he could walk more than a few feet, let alone navigate through the snow-covered wilderness to reach help. The German Shepherd seemed to understand Marcus's predicament. The dog moved closer and gently nudged Marcus's good arm with its nose, as if encouraging him to try to stand up. When Marcus made an effort to move, the dog positioned itself next to him, offering physical support. With the German Shepherd's help, Marcus managed to get out of the car and stand on unsteady legs. The snow around the vehicle was knee-deep, and every step was a struggle. But the dog stayed right beside him, ready to provide support if he fell. Marcus looked around at his surroundings for the first time since the crash. The patrol car was completely hidden from the road above, wedged between trees and boulders at the bottom of the ravine. There was no way anyone driving by would be able to see the vehicle or know that there had been an accident. The realization was sobering. Even when the storm cleared and search teams began looking for him, they might never find this location. The German Shepherd seemed to understand the urgency of the situation. The dog began moving away from the crashed car, frequently looking back to make sure Marcus was following. It was clear that the animal had a destination in mind, somewhere it believed would offer better chances for rescue or survival. Marcus had no choice but to trust this remarkable animal. With painful, slow steps, he began to follow the German Shepherd through the snow-covered wilderness, hoping that somehow the stray dog would lead him to safety. Behind them, the wrecked patrol car disappeared into the white landscape, marking the beginning of an incredible journey of survival and the start of a bond that would change both their lives forever. The German Shepherd moved through the snow with a confidence that amazed Marcus. Despite the harsh conditions and unfamiliar terrain, the dog seemed to know exactly where it was going. Marcus struggled to keep up, his injured left arm hanging uselessly at his side, while he used his right hand to steady himself against trees and rocks. Every step sent sharp pains through his ribs, and his legs felt like they might give out at any moment. The dog frequently stopped to wait for Marcus, never getting too far ahead. When Marcus stumbled or fell behind, the German Shepherd would return to his side, sometimes gently nudging him forward with its nose, or positioning itself so Marcus could lean against its sturdy frame for support. The animal's patience and understanding were remarkable, as if it truly comprehended the severity of Marcus's injuries. They had been walking for about an hour when Marcus noticed something that filled him with dread. His footprints in the snow were spotted with blood. Either from his head injury or internal bleeding, he was losing blood with each step. The cold had initially numbed much of his pain, but now as his body temperature dropped further, he was beginning to feel every injury more acutely. The German Shepherd seemed to sense Marcus's deteriorating condition. The dog began to move more slowly, taking a path that avoided the steepest slopes and densest undergrowth. It was clear that the animal was modifying its route to accommodate Marcus's limitations, showing a level of empathy and intelligence that was almost human-like. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the snow became deeper and more difficult to navigate. Marcus's uniform was soaked through, and ice was forming on his jacket and pants. His fingers had long since gone numb, making it difficult to grasp branches or rocks for support. He was beginning to show signs of severe hypothermia, including confusion and slurred speech. During one particularly difficult stretch, Marcus collapsed in the snow, unable to continue. His vision was blurring, and he felt an overwhelming urge to simply lie down and rest. He knew that giving in to this urge would likely mean death, but his body was shutting down from the cold and exhaustion. The German Shepherd immediately sprang into action. The dog began barking loudly and persistently, a sharp, urgent sound that cut through the mountain air. When Marcus didn't respond, the animal gently but firmly grabbed his jacket sleeve and began pulling, trying to get him back on his feet. "I can't," Marcus mumbled through chattering teeth. "I can't go any further." But the German Shepherd wouldn't give up. The dog continued its efforts to rouse Marcus, alternating between barking and gently nudging him with its nose. Finally, the animal did something that shocked Marcus into alertness. The German Shepherd lay down in the snow next to him, pressing its warm body against Marcus's side, sharing its body heat. The warmth from the dog's body was like a lifeline. Marcus could feel some feeling returning to his extremities, and his thinking became clearer. He realized that this animal was literally keeping him alive, sacrificing its own safety to ensure his survival. With renewed determination, Marcus forced himself back to his feet. They continued their journey through the wilderness, but now the German Shepherd stayed closer to Marcus, occasionally pressing against his leg to share warmth. The dog seemed to understand that Marcus's condition was critical and that time was running short. Their pace quickened slightly, though the animal continued to be mindful of Marcus's limitations. As the day progressed, Marcus began to notice signs that they were heading towards some kind of destination. The German Shepherd's movement became more purposeful and direct. The dog would occasionally stop and lift its head, as if listening for something or trying to catch a scent on the wind. Around midday, they crested a small ridge, and Marcus saw something that gave him hope. In the distance, partially hidden by trees, was what appeared to be an old mining cabin. It was weathered and looked abandoned, but it represented shelter from the elements. Marcus wondered if this was where the German Shepherd had been leading him all along. The cabin was still at least half a mile away across difficult terrain, but the sight of potential shelter gave Marcus the strength to continue. The German Shepherd seemed excited too, its tail wagging slightly as it led Marcus down the ridge toward the structure. The final approach to the cabin was treacherous. They had to navigate around fallen logs, large rocks, and patches of ice-covered ground. Marcus fell several times, and each time the German Shepherd was there to help him up, either by offering physical support or by encouraging him with gentle nudges. When they finally reached the cabin, Marcus could see that it was indeed abandoned, probably left over from Colorado's mining era decades earlier. The structure was solid but weathered, with a sagging roof and broken windows. More importantly, it offered protection from the wind and snow. The German Shepherd approached the cabin cautiously at first, sniffing around the perimeter and checking for any signs of danger. Once satisfied that it was safe, the dog led Marcus to the front door. The door was stuck, warped by years of weather, but Marcus was able to force it open with his good shoulder. Inside, the cabin was dark and musty, but it was considerably warmer than outside. There was an old stone fireplace, some basic furniture covered in dust and debris, and evidence that other travelers had used the cabin for shelter over the years. Most importantly, there was a stack of old firewood near the fireplace. Marcus collapsed into an old chair, exhausted from the journey. The German Shepherd explored the cabin thoroughly, sniffing in every corner and ensuring that they were truly alone. Once satisfied, the dog settled down near Marcus's feet, keeping watch while he rested. With great effort, Marcus managed to build a small fire in the fireplace, using some old newspapers and dry wood he found in the cabin. The German Shepherd watched with interest as flames began to flicker, and soon warmth began to fill the small space. For the first time since the accident, Marcus felt like he might actually survive. As feeling began to return to his extremities, Marcus was able to better assess his injuries. His left shoulder was definitely dislocated or broken, and he suspected he had several cracked ribs. The head injuries seemed to be superficial, though he had lost a significant amount of blood. Most concerning was the numbness and pain in his left leg, which he hadn't noticed during the adrenaline-fueled walk to the cabin. The German Shepherd seemed to sense Marcus's continued distress. The animal approached slowly and laid its head on Marcus's lap, offering comfort and companionship. Marcus gently petted the dog's head with his good hand, marveling at the animal's loyalty and intelligence. "Thank you," Marcus whispered to his canine companion. "You saved my life." The dog's tail wagged slightly at the sound of his voice, and its eyes remained fixed on Marcus's face, as if understanding every word. As evening approached, Marcus realized they couldn't stay in the cabin indefinitely. While it provided shelter from the immediate elements, he needed medical attention for his injuries, and they had no food or water. His radio and cell phone were still non-functional, leaving them completely cut off from the outside world. The German Shepherd seemed restless as darkness fell. The animal would periodically go to the cabin door and whine softly, as if sensing something outside. Marcus wondered if the dog was picking up sounds or scents that he couldn't detect with his human senses. Around sunset, the dog's behavior became more agitated. It began barking intermittently and pacing back and forth near the door. Marcus struggled to his feet and peered out through one of the broken windows, trying to see what was causing the animal's distress. At first, he saw nothing unusual. The snow-covered landscape looked peaceful in the fading light. But then he heard it too. A sound that didn't belong in the wilderness. It was distant and intermittent, but unmistakable. The sound of helicopter rotors. Marcus's heart raced with excitement and hope. Someone was searching for him. The German Shepherd had heard the helicopter long before Marcus's human ears could detect it, and the animal's behavior suggested it understood that this sound meant potential rescue. Without hesitation, Marcus forced himself outside the cabin despite his injuries. The German Shepherd followed, its excitement evident in its body language. Together, they stood in the snow outside the cabin, looking up at the darkening sky. The sound of the helicopter grew louder, and Marcus could see lights in the distance, sweeping back and forth across the mountainous terrain. It was definitely a search helicopter, probably launched by his department when he failed to report in after the storm. Marcus tried to wave his good arm and shout, but he knew the chances of being seen or heard from this distance were slim. The cabin was hidden among the trees, and there was no clear landing area nearby. Frustration and despair began to set in, as the helicopter sounds grew fainter, suggesting the aircraft was moving away from their location. But the German Shepherd wasn't ready to give up. The animal began barking loudly and continuously, a sound that carried much further through the mountain air than Marcus's weakened voice. The dog seemed to understand that noise was their best chance of attracting attention. Marcus watched in amazement as the German Shepherd continued its relentless barking, pointing its nose toward the sky where the helicopter lights were visible. The animal was literally calling for help, using every ounce of its strength to create as much noise as possible. For several tense minutes they stood together in the snow, Marcus waving his good arm and the German Shepherd barking frantically. The helicopter's sound seemed to fade completely, and Marcus began to fear that their chance for rescue had passed. Then, incredibly, the sound of the rotors began to grow louder again. The helicopter was returning, apparently having heard something that caused the pilot to circle back. The German Shepherd's barking had worked. They had been heard. The search helicopter appeared over the trees, its powerful spotlight sweeping across the ground. When the beam of light illuminated Marcus and the German Shepherd standing outside the cabin, the aircraft immediately changed direction and began looking for a place to land. There was no suitable landing zone near the cabin, but the helicopter crew was able to hover low enough to drop a rescue harness. Marcus was too weak and injured to climb up on his own, so a paramedic was lowered down to assist him. The paramedic, an experienced mountain rescue specialist named Tom Rodriguez, was amazed to find Marcus alive and conscious after being missing for nearly 20 hours in blizzard conditions. He was even more surprised to see the German Shepherd standing guard nearby. "Is this your dog?" Tom asked as he began assessing Marcus's injuries. "No," Marcus replied weakly. "He found me. He saved my life." Tom looked at the German Shepherd with new respect. The animal had remained close during the rescue operation but hadn't interfered with the paramedics' work. It was clear that the dog understood what was happening and approved of the rescue efforts. As Tom prepared Marcus for evacuation, he noticed the trail of footprints leading from the direction of the ravine where the patrol car had crashed. The prints showed that Marcus had walked several miles through deep snow in sub-freezing temperatures, an incredible feat for someone with his injuries. But alongside Marcus's footprints were the paw prints of the German Shepherd, telling the story of their journey together. "This dog led you here," Tom observed. "It probably saved your life by getting you to shelter." Marcus nodded weakly. Even through his pain and exhaustion, he was acutely aware of how much he owed to his four-legged companion. Without the German Shepherd's help, he would have died in the crashed patrol car, just another victim of Colorado's harsh mountain winters. As the rescue harness was secured around Marcus, he looked down at the German Shepherd. The animal was watching the proceedings with calm intelligence, its tail wagging slightly. Marcus knew he couldn't leave his rescuer behind. "We have to take the dog too," Marcus told Tom. "I can't leave him here." Tom nodded, understanding. "We'll come back for him, I promise. Right now, we need to get you to a hospital immediately." As Marcus was lifted toward the helicopter, He kept his eyes fixed on the German Shepherd below. The animal stood motionless in the snow, watching its human friend being taken to safety. Even as the helicopter rose higher, Marcus could see the dog's distinctive silhouette against the white landscape. The flight to the hospital seemed to take forever, though it was actually less than 30 minutes. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness, but his thoughts kept returning to the remarkable animal that had saved his life. He was determined to ensure that the German Shepherd received the recognition and care it deserved. At the hospital, doctors confirmed that Marcus had suffered a dislocated shoulder, 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, and severe hypothermia. If he had remained exposed to the elements for much longer, he likely would have died from the cold. The fact that he had walked several miles through a blizzard in his condition was nothing short of miraculous. But Marcus knew it wasn't a miracle that had saved him. It was the intelligence, loyalty, and determination of a stray German Shepherd who had risked its own life to help a stranger in need. As he lay in his hospital bed, warm and safe, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the animal that was still out there in the wilderness, waiting for the rescue team to return. The story of Marcus's survival was already spreading through the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. His fellow officers were amazed by the account of the German Shepherd that had found him and led him to safety. Many of them were eager to meet this remarkable animal and see for themselves the dog that had saved one of their own. But first, they had to find the German Shepherd again and bring it to safety. Tom Rodriguez had promised to return for the animal, and he was a man of his word. As soon as weather conditions permitted, another rescue mission would be launched, this time to save the hero who had saved Marcus Thompson. 24 hours after Marcus's rescue, Tom Rodriguez found himself preparing for another helicopter mission into the same treacherous mountain terrain. This time, however, the mission was purely voluntary. The department hadn't ordered him to return for the German Shepherd, but Tom couldn't get the image of the loyal animal out of his mind. The dog had stood in the snow, watching as they lifted Marcus to safety, and Tom had made a promise he intended to keep. Word of Marcus's survival and the role played by the mysterious German Shepherd had spread quickly through the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Sheriff Karen Walsh, a 20-year veteran and avid dog lover, had volunteered to accompany Tom on the return mission. She brought along specialized equipment for safely transporting a potentially frightened or injured animal. "You sure he'll still be there?" Karen asked as they approached the cabin location in the helicopter. The morning was clear and cold with excellent visibility across the snow-covered mountains. "If he's anything like Marcus described, he'll be there," Tom replied confidently. "Dogs like that don't abandon their posts easily." As the helicopter circled the cabin area, both rescuers scanned the ground for any sign of the German Shepherd. The snow around the cabin was marked with numerous paw prints, suggesting the animal had remained in the area, probably waiting for Marcus to return. Then they saw him. The German Shepherd was sitting in the exact spot where Marcus had been lifted from the previous day, looking up at the helicopter with alert, intelligent eyes. The animal showed no signs of fear or agitation at the aircraft's approach, almost as if it had been expecting them to return. "There he is," Karen said with obvious emotion in her voice. "Look at him, he's been waiting." Tom maneuvered the helicopter to the same position they had used the day before. Due to the terrain, they couldn't land, but he could hover low enough for Karen to rappel down with the necessary equipment to secure the dog for transport. The German Shepherd watched calmly as Karen descended from the helicopter. The animal's behavior was remarkable. Instead of running away or showing signs of stress, the dog approached Karen with what could only be described as cautious optimism. It was as if the animal understood that these people were connected to Marcus and could be trusted. "Hello there, big guy." Karen spoke softly as her feet touched the ground. "We're here to take you somewhere safe, just like we did with your friend Marcus." The German Shepherd tilted its head at the mention of Marcus's name, its ears perking up with obvious recognition. Karen was amazed by the animal's responsiveness and intelligence. In her 20 years of law enforcement, she had worked with many police dogs, but she had never encountered an animal that seemed to understand human speech and intentions so clearly. Karen had brought a transport harness designed specifically for rescuing animals from difficult terrain. However, she quickly realized that the German Shepherd would need minimal restraint. The animal seemed to understand what was happening and was cooperating fully with the rescue effort. "You're something special, aren't you?" Karen murmured as she carefully fitted the harness around the dog's chest and shoulders. The German Shepherd stood perfectly still during the process, occasionally looking up toward the helicopter as if checking on the progress. As Karen secured her own harness and prepared for the lift back to the helicopter, she took a moment to examine the area around the cabin. The story told by the tracks in the snow was remarkable. She could see the path Marcus and the dog had taken from the direction of the crash site, the places where Marcus had fallen and been helped back to his feet, and the evidence of their night spent in the abandoned cabin. "This dog literally saved a man's life," Karen radioed to Tom. "The evidence is all here in the snow. Without this animal, Marcus never would have made it to shelter." The ascent to the helicopter went smoothly. The German Shepherd remained calm throughout the process, seeming to trust Karen completely. Once inside the aircraft, the animal settled down quietly, occasionally looking out the windows at the landscape passing below. During the flight back to town, Karen was able to get a better look at the German Shepherd. The animal was clearly a purebred, probably around 2 or 3 years old, in excellent physical condition despite obviously living in the wild for some time. Its coat was thick and healthy, and its eyes were bright and alert. Most striking was the dog's behavior. It showed none of the anxiety or aggression that might be expected from a stray animal. Instead, the German Shepherd seemed to possess an almost human-like understanding of the situation. It watched the rescue operation with calm intelligence, never interfering or showing distress. "Have you ever seen anything like this?" Karen asked Tom through the helicopter's intercom system. "Never," Tom replied. "I've been doing mountain rescue for 15 years, and I've never encountered an animal with this level of intelligence and loyalty. This dog isn't just smart, it's extraordinary." The flight to the sheriff's office took 45 minutes. During this time, Karen observed the German Shepherd carefully, trying to piece together its story. The animal showed no signs of recent domestication, no collar marks around its neck, no indications that it had been recently groomed or fed by humans. Yet its behavior suggested extensive contact with people at some point in its past. When they landed at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, a small crowd had gathered. Word of the rescue mission had spread, and several deputies had come to see the heroic dog that had saved Marcus Thompson. Among them was Sheriff Robert Martinez, who had specifically asked to meet the animal that had saved one of his officers. The German Shepherd exited the helicopter with dignity, showing no signs of stress or confusion despite being surrounded by unfamiliar people and vehicles. The animal's calm demeanor and confident posture impressed everyone who witnessed its arrival. "So this is our hero," Sheriff Martinez said as he approached the German Shepherd. "Marcus told me about you, boy. You did something incredible out there." The German Shepherd looked directly at the sheriff, its tail wagging slightly in response to the friendly tone of voice. Several of the deputies were amazed by the animal's apparent understanding of the praise being directed its way. Dr. Emily Santos, a local veterinarian who had volunteered her services, arrived to examine the German Shepherd and ensure it was in good health after its ordeal in the wilderness. Her mobile clinic was set up in the sheriff's office parking lot, and the examination began immediately. The results of the veterinary examination were remarkable. Despite living in harsh mountain conditions, the German Shepherd was in excellent health. Its weight was slightly below optimal, suggesting it had been surviving on limited food sources, but there were no signs of malnutrition or disease. More importantly, there were no microchips or other identification markers that might help locate the animal's owner. "This dog has definitely been living wild for an extended period, Dr. Sheb," Santos reported to the assembled group. "Probably several months, maybe longer, but it's in surprisingly good condition, which suggests it's been very successful at finding food and shelter in the mountains."
The examination also revealed some interesting details about the German Shepherd's past.
Its paws showed signs of extended travel over rough terrain, and its coat had adapted to outdoor living. However, its teeth were in excellent condition, and its muscle development suggested it had once been well cared for and possibly trained. "This was somebody's dog at one time, Dr. Victania," Santos continued. "It's been socialized and trained, probably to a very high level." German Shepherds don't develop this kind of intelligence and problem-solving ability without significant human interaction during their development. As word of the German Shepherd's rescue spread through the community, calls began pouring into the sheriff's office. Some were from people claiming to have lost German Shepherds, but when deputies investigated these claims, none of the descriptions matched their rescued hero. Other calls came from people offering to adopt the animal, recognizing the special nature of a dog that had performed such an incredible act of heroism. Marcus Thompson, still recovering in the hospital from his injuries, made a request through his wife Sarah. He wanted to meet with the German Shepherd as soon as his doctors would allow it. The emotional reunion between the injured officer and the dog that had saved his life was something that everyone involved was eager to witness. 3 days after the rescue, Marcus was able to receive visitors at the hospital. His injuries were healing well, though he would need several weeks of physical therapy to regain full use of his left shoulder. More importantly, his core body temperature had returned to normal, and there were no lasting effects from his severe hypothermia. When Sarah Thompson arrived at the hospital with Karen Walsh and the German Shepherd, Marcus was sitting up in bed, eager to see his four-legged savior again. The moment the German Shepherd entered the room, its entire demeanor changed. The animal's tail began wagging enthusiastically, and it approached Marcus's bedside with obvious joy and recognition. "Hello again, boy," Marcus said softly, extending his good hand toward the dog. "I've been thinking about you every day." The German Shepherd gently placed its head under Marcus's hand, allowing itself to be petted while maintaining eye contact. The emotion in the room was overwhelming as everyone watched the reunion between the man and the animal that had saved his life.
"He's been different since the rescue," Karen observed.
Calmer, more settled. "I think he was worried about you." Dr. Becky, one head dead. Santos had accompanied the group to the hospital, bringing with her the results of additional tests she had conducted on the German Shepherd. Her findings were even more intriguing than the initial examination had revealed. "This dog has received professional training at some point," she reported. "Not just basic obedience training, but advanced work. The muscle development in its hindquarters and the calluses on its paws suggest it's been trained for search and rescue or possibly police work." This revelation added another layer to the mystery surrounding the German Shepherd. If the animal had been trained for search and rescue work, it would explain its extraordinary behavior in finding and helping Marcus. But it raised new questions about how such a valuable and highly trained dog had ended up as a stray in the Colorado mountains. Marcus listened to Dr. Santos's report with growing amazement. "You think he might have been a working dog, like a police canine?" "It's very possible, Doctor," Santos replied. "The level of problem-solving intelligence this dog displayed, combined with its calm behavior under stress and its obvious training, all point to a background in professional work. German Shepherds are commonly used in police and search and rescue operations because of their intelligence and loyalty." Sheriff Martinez, who had been quietly observing the reunion, spoke up. "We'll launch a full investigation into this dog's background. If it was a working dog, there should be records somewhere. Someone, somewhere, is missing a very special animal." The investigation into the German Shepherd's background began immediately. Deputies contacted police departments, search and rescue organizations, and military units throughout Colorado and neighboring states. They were looking for any reports of missing German Shepherds, particularly those with advanced training. The search expanded to include retired working dogs that might have been adopted out to private families. Many police and military dogs are retired after years of service and placed with civilian families. It was possible that the German Shepherd had escaped or been separated from such a family during a trip to the mountains. While the investigation continued, a temporary arrangement was made for the German Shepherd's care. Karen Walsh volunteered to foster the animal at her home, where she had facilities for caring for large dogs. The German Shepherd adapted quickly to its temporary home, but it was clear that the animal was still processing its recent experiences. "He's well behaved and house-trained," Karen reported to Marcus during one of her visits to the hospital. "But he spends a lot of time looking out the windows, like he's watching for something or someone. I think he might be looking for you." Marcus was deeply moved by this news. The bond that had formed between him and the German Shepherd during their life-or-death ordeal was clearly strong and lasting. As his recovery progressed, Marcus found himself thinking more and more about what would happen to the dog once its background investigation was complete. The investigation took an unexpected turn when deputies received a call from a retired search and rescue coordinator in northern Colorado. The man had read about the German Shepherd in the local newspaper and thought the description sounded familiar. He provided information that would finally begin to unravel the mystery of the heroic dog's past. According to the retired coordinator, a highly trained German Shepherd named Rex had gone missing from a search and rescue training facility nearly 8 months earlier. The dog had been scheduled for retirement due to a minor hip condition that didn't affect its daily life but made it unsuitable for continued professional rescue work. "Rex was one of the best dogs we ever trained," the coordinator explained to Sheriff Martinez. "Incredible intelligence, problem-solving ability, and an almost supernatural ability to find people in distress. When he went missing, we searched for weeks. We assumed he had been taken by someone who recognized his value. The coordinator agreed to drive down to Jefferson County to see if the German Shepherd was indeed the missing Rex. The identification would be confirmed through a combination of physical examination, behavioral assessment, and DNA testing if necessary. When the coordinator arrived and saw the German Shepherd, his identification was immediate and emotional. "That's Rex," he said without hesitation. "I'd recognize him anywhere. Look at the way he holds his head, the intelligence in his eyes. That's definitely Rex." The reunion between Rex and his former trainer was touching but also bittersweet. It was clear that Rex remembered the man and was happy to see him, but the dog's behavior suggested that its experiences during the 8 months of freedom had changed it significantly.
He's been through something profound, the coordinator observed.
Rex was always intelligent and capable, but there's something different about him now, something deeper. His experience saving that officer has affected him in ways I've never seen in a working dog. The coordinator explained that Rex had been scheduled for adoption by a family in northern Colorado when he went missing. The family had been devastated by the loss and had never stopped hoping that Rex would be found. They were contacted immediately and made plans to drive down to Jefferson County for an emotional reunion. However, as these arrangements were being made, Marcus Thompson was facing a difficult realization. During his recovery, he had formed a deep emotional bond with Rex. The thought of the dog going to live with strangers, even loving and caring strangers, was almost unbearable. "That dog saved my life," Marcus told his wife Sarah during one of their conversations about Rex's future. "We went through something together that can't be explained or replicated. I can't just let him go to someone else and pretend none of this happened." Sarah understood her husband's feelings, but she also recognized the practical and ethical complications of the situation. Rex technically belonged to someone else, people who had been searching for him for 8 months and had every right to reclaim their beloved pet. The situation was further complicated by the fact that Marcus's own children, 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Tyler, had visited Rex at Karen's house and had fallen in love with the heroic dog. They couldn't understand why their father's best friend couldn't come live with them permanently. As Marcus's release from the hospital approached, the question of Rex's future became more pressing. The retired search and rescue coordinator had contacted Rex's intended adoptive family, the Morrison family, from Fort Collins, and they were driving down to meet the dog that had been missing for so long. The meeting was scheduled to take place at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office in a neutral setting where Rex could be evaluated and his reaction to his potential new family could be observed. Marcus, despite his recent injuries, insisted on being present for this crucial meeting. The meeting between Rex and the Morrison family was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Marcus Thompson arrived early, still wearing a sling for his injured shoulder and moving carefully due to his healing ribs. Despite his physical discomfort, he was determined to be present for what he suspected would be one of the most emotionally challenging moments of his life. The Morrison family consisted of David Morrison, a 45-year-old software engineer, his wife Linda, a veterinary technician, and their 2 teenage sons, Jake and Alex. They had been devastated when Rex disappeared 8 months earlier, just days before they were scheduled to take him home from the search and rescue facility. The family had driven 4 hours from Fort Collins, carrying with them Rex's adoption papers, his favorite toys, and a bed they had purchased for him before he went missing. Karen Walsh brought Rex to the sheriff's office an hour before the meeting, giving him time to acclimate to the environment and settle down. The German Shepherd seemed to sense that something significant was about to happen. He was more alert than usual, his ears constantly swiveling to catch new sounds, and his intelligent eyes tracked every person who entered the building. Sheriff Martinez had arranged for the meeting to take place in the department's community room, a large, comfortable space normally used for public meetings and community outreach events. The room had been set up with chairs arranged in a circle, creating a non-threatening environment where Rex could interact with everyone present. When the Morrison family arrived, the emotional weight of the moment was immediately apparent. Linda Morrison's eyes filled with tears the moment she saw Rex, and both of their sons moved toward the dog with obvious excitement and recognition. "Rex," Linda called softly, her voice breaking with emotion. "Rex, we've missed you so much." Rex's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. His ears perked up at the sound of his name spoken in Linda's familiar voice, and his tail began to wag. The German Shepherd approached the family with obvious recognition and affection, allowing himself to be petted and embraced by people who had clearly been important to him in the past. Marcus watched this reunion with a heavy heart. There was no doubt that Rex remembered the Morrison family and was genuinely happy to see them. The bond between the dog and this family was real and strong, built over months of visits to the search and rescue facility, where they had gotten to know Rex before his scheduled adoption. "He remembers us," Jake Morrison said with obvious joy as Rex nuzzled against his hand. "Look, he remembers the way we used to scratch behind his ears." David Morrison knelt down next to Rex, examining the dog for any signs of injury or mistreatment during his months in the wilderness. "He looks good," David observed, "thinner than before, but healthy. Somebody's been taking good care of him." It was at this point that the Morrison family learned the full story of Rex's rescue and the role he had played in saving Marcus Thompson's life. Sheriff Martinez provided a detailed account of the events, from Marcus's accident in the blizzard to Rex's incredible actions in leading the injured officer to safety. The Morrison family listened in amazement as they learned about Rex's heroism. Their dog, the animal they had been searching for and mourning for 8 months, had become a genuine hero, saving a man's life through intelligence, determination, and loyalty that went beyond anything they had imagined possible. "We always knew Rex was special," Linda Morrison said, tears streaming down her face, "but we never imagined he was capable of something like this. What he did for Officer Thompson is miraculous." Marcus, who had been quietly observing the reunion, finally spoke up. His voice was steady but filled with emotion as he addressed the Morrison family directly. "Rex didn't just save my life," Marcus said. "He changed it. What we went through together in those mountains created a bond that I've never experienced with any animal. He stayed with me when he could have moved on to safety. He shared his body heat to keep me warm. He led me to shelter and then called for help when the rescue helicopter arrived. Rex made a conscious choice to save my life, and I will never forget that." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the weight of Marcus's words. The Morrison family was clearly moved by his testimony, but they were also facing an impossible situation. They had legitimate claim to Rex, having begun the adoption process months before his disappearance. But they could also see the profound bond that existed between the dog and the man whose life he had saved. Rex himself seemed to sense the tension in the room. The intelligent animal moved between the Morrison family and Marcus, showing affection for both but appearing somewhat confused by the emotional undercurrents he was detecting from the humans around him. Dr. Emily Santos, who had been observing the interaction from across the room, offered her professional perspective on Rex's behavior. "He's showing attachment to both parties," she noted. "There's clearly a strong bond with the Morrison family based on their previous relationship, but there's also something different in his behavior around Officer Thompson. The trauma they shared has created a unique type of bond that's very powerful in canine psychology." Karen Walsh, who had been fostering Rex for the past week, added her own observations. "Rex has been different since the rescue," she said. "He's calmer, more focused, and he shows behaviors I've never seen in other dogs. It's like his experience in the mountains changed him fundamentally. He keeps looking toward the direction of the hospital, and he becomes agitated when police cars drive by. Like he's looking for Officer Thompson." The conversation continued for over an hour, with everyone trying to find a solution that would be fair to all parties involved. The Morrison family clearly loved Rex and had been devastated by his loss. They had every legal and moral right to reclaim the dog they had been preparing to adopt, but the circumstances of Rex's rescue and the bond he had formed with Marcus created a unique and complicated situation that had no clear resolution. It was Alex Morrison, the younger of the two teenagers, who finally broke the deadlock with a question that cut to the heart of the matter. "What does Rex want?" the 16-year-old asked. "I mean, we all love him, but what would make Rex happiest? Isn't that what really matters?" This simple question from a teenager changed the entire dynamic of the conversation. Instead of focusing on legal rights or emotional claims, everyone began to consider what would be best for Rex himself. The German Shepherd had been through extraordinary experiences during his 8 months of freedom, culminating in his heroic rescue of Marcus Thompson. Those experiences had clearly changed him, and his needs might be different now than they had been before his disappearance. Sheriff Martinez suggested a solution that surprised everyone in the room. "What if we let Rex choose?" he proposed. "We could set up a situation where Rex can interact with both families over several days in different environments and see where he seems most comfortable and happy." The idea was unconventional, but it appealed to everyone involved. The Morrison family wanted what was best for Rex, and they were willing to consider any option that would ensure his happiness and well-being. Marcus and his family were equally committed to Rex's welfare, even if it meant accepting that the dog might be happier with his original intended family. A plan was developed for a week-long evaluation period. Rex would spend alternating days with the Morrison family and the Thompson family, with neutral observers monitoring his behavior and stress levels. At the end of the week, a decision would be made based on Rex's apparent preferences and overall well-being. The first day of the evaluation began with Rex spending the morning with the Morrison family at their hotel in Lakewood. The reunion was joyful and emotional, with Rex clearly happy to reconnect with people who had been important to him in the past. The family took Rex for walks around the hotel grounds, played with him in a nearby park, and spent quiet time bonding in their hotel room. Rex's behavior with the Morrisons was relaxed and affectionate. He responded to his name, followed basic commands that the family had taught him during their previous visits to the search and rescue facility, and showed obvious pleasure in their company. To any outside observer, it appeared that Rex had found his way back to his intended family and was perfectly content. However, when the afternoon transition occurred and Marcus Thompson arrived to take Rex to his family's home, something remarkable happened. The moment Rex saw Marcus, his entire demeanor changed. The dog's tail began wagging with an intensity that surprised everyone present, and he strained toward Marcus with obvious excitement and recognition. The German Shepherd's greeting of Marcus was unlike anything the observers had witnessed during his morning with the Morrison family. Rex jumped up to place his front paws on Marcus's chest, carefully avoiding his injured shoulder, whined with joy, and pressed his body against Marcus's legs in a display of affection that seemed to transcend normal human-dog interactions. "Did you see that?" "Doctor," Santos whispered to Karen Walsh. "That's not just recognition or affection. That's the behavior of a dog greeting someone he considers his pack leader, someone he has a profound bond with." The afternoon with the Thompson family revealed another side of Rex's personality. Around Marcus, Sarah, Emma, and Tyler, the German Shepherd displayed behaviors that suggested deep emotional attachment and protectiveness. He stayed close to Marcus at all times, often positioning himself between Marcus and any perceived threats. When the children played in the backyard, Rex supervised their activities with the careful attention of a guardian. Most tellingly, Rex's stress indicators were completely absent when he was with the Thompson family. His breathing remained calm, his movements were relaxed, and he showed none of the low-level anxiety that dogs often display in unfamiliar situations. It was as if being with Marcus and his family was the most natural thing in the world for Rex. The evaluation continued for the full week, with Rex alternating between the two families each day. Observers noted that while Rex was happy and well-behaved with the Morrison family, he showed signs of separation anxiety when they dropped him off at the end of each visit. He would look back toward their car as they drove away and would remain somewhat subdued for the first hour after their departure. In contrast, Rex's transitions to the Thompson family were marked by obvious joy and excitement. The dog would perk up immediately upon seeing Marcus and would remain in high spirits throughout their time together. When the time came to return Rex to the neutral location for pickup by the Morrison family, Rex would often resist leaving, requiring gentle encouragement to go. By the middle of the week, the pattern was clear to everyone involved in the evaluation. While Rex remembered and cared for the Morrison family, his strongest emotional attachment was clearly to Marcus Thompson and his family. The trauma and life-threatening experience that Marcus and Rex had shared in the mountains had created a bond that transcended normal pet-owner relationships. Dr. Santos documented her observations in a detailed report that would help guide the final decision. "Rex shows clear attachment behaviors toward both families," she wrote. "However, his strongest emotional responses and lowest stress indicators are consistently associated with the Thompson family, particularly with Officer Marcus Thompson." The trauma bonding that occurred during their survival experience has created a psychological attachment that is deeper and more significant than his previous socialization with the Morrison family.
The veterinarian's report also noted some concerning behaviors that Rex displayed during his time with the Morrison family.
While he was never aggressive or uncooperative, Rex showed signs of depression and anxiety during longer separations from Marcus. He would pace near windows, periodically whine for no apparent reason, and show decreased appetite and interest in play activities. These behavioral observations aligned with current scientific understanding of trauma bonding in animals. Rex and Marcus had shared a life-threatening experience that created a psychological connection similar to what might develop between soldiers who survive combat together, or between rescue workers who face dangerous situations as a team. On Friday afternoon, the Morrison family, the Thompson family, Sheriff Martinez, Dr. Santos, and several other observers gathered for a final evaluation session. Rex was brought into the community room where both families were present, and his behavior was carefully monitored, as he had the opportunity to interact with everyone simultaneously. The results were unmistakable. While Rex greeted the Morrison family warmly and accepted their affection, he consistently returned to Marcus's side. When both families called his name from opposite sides of the room, Rex looked back and forth between them for a moment before walking directly to Marcus. Most convincingly, when a loud noise in the hallway startled everyone in the room, Rex immediately moved to position himself protectively next to Marcus, despite the fact that the Morrison family was closer to him at that moment. This protective instinct demonstrated that Rex considered Marcus to be under his care and protection, a relationship that went far beyond simple affection or familiarity. David Morrison was the first to acknowledge what everyone in the room could see. "Rex has made his choice," David said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "As much as we love him and want him back, It's clear that his place is with the Thompson family. What they went through together changed him, and we have to respect that. Linda Morrison, tears streaming down her face, nodded in agreement. Rex saved Officer Thompson's life, she said. The least we can do is respect his decision about where he wants to spend the rest of his life. It's clear that he belongs with the Thompsons now. The decision was difficult for the Morrison family, but it was also a testament to their character and their genuine love for Rex. They could have insisted on their legal rights to the dog, but they chose instead to prioritize Rex's emotional well-being and happiness over their own desires. Marcus Thompson was deeply moved by the Morrison family's selflessness. I want you to know that Rex will always be loved and cared for, Marcus assured them. He'll have the best possible life with my family, and you'll always be welcome to visit him whenever you want. You are his family first, and that means something. Sheriff Martinez officiated as the legal arrangements were finalized, with the Morrison family formally transferring their adoption rights to the Thompson family. The paperwork was simple, but the emotional weight of the moment was profound. Rex was officially becoming a member of the Thompson family. The culmination of an extraordinary journey that had begun with a chance encounter in a Colorado blizzard. As the meeting concluded and the Morrison family prepared to return to Fort Collins, Rex seemed to sense the significance of the moment. The German Shepherd approached each member of the Morrison family, accepting their final pets and gentle words of farewell. There was sadness in his eyes, as if he understood that these people who had cared for him were saying goodbye. But when Rex returned to Marcus's side, his tail wagged with quiet contentment. He had found his forever home with the family of the man whose life he had saved. The bond forged in the mountains during the fight for survival had led to a new beginning for both Marcus and Rex, a partnership that would endure for the rest of their lives together. The story of Rex's choice between two loving families would become one of the most talked about aspects of his already legendary tale. It demonstrated not only the intelligence and emotional depth of German Shepherds as a breed, but also the profound impact that shared trauma and survival experiences can have on the bonds between humans and animals. As the Thompson family prepared to take Rex home permanently, everyone involved in the week-long evaluation knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. They had seen a dog make a conscious choice about his future based on emotional bonds and loyalty that transcended normal pet owner relationships. Rex had chosen his family just as clearly as he had chosen to save Marcus's life in the mountains, and his decision would have consequences that would ripple through the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and the broader community for years to come. The first night Rex spent at the Thompson family home was a moment that Marcus would remember for the rest of his life. As the family settled in for the evening, Rex made his choice about where he belonged by quietly walking into Marcus's bedroom and lying down beside the bed. When Sarah suggested that Rex might be more comfortable in the living room or kitchen, the German Shepherd simply looked at her with patient intelligence, then returned his attention to Marcus, making it clear that his place was wherever his partner needed him. I think Rex has made another decision, Marcus said with a gentle smile, reaching down to stroke the dog's head. He's appointed himself as my personal guardian. Over the following weeks, Rex's integration into the Thompson family was remarkable in its smoothness and naturalness. The German Shepherd seemed to understand instinctively that he was now part of a family unit with specific roles and responsibilities toward each member. With Marcus, Rex maintained his protective vigilance, staying close during Marcus's physical therapy sessions and seeming to monitor his recovery progress with the attention of a medical professional. With Sarah, Rex was gentle and respectful, accepting her authority in household matters while showing obvious affection and loyalty. The children, Emma and Tyler, discovered that they had gained not just a pet, but a playmate, protector, and companion who seemed to understand their needs and moods with supernatural intuition. 8-year-old Emma was particularly fascinated by Rex's intelligence and began teaching him new tricks and commands. The German Shepherd learned with astonishing speed, mastering complex sequences of behaviors in just a few sessions. Tyler, who was naturally more cautious around large dogs, found in Rex a patient and gentle friend who seemed to adjust his playstyle to match the 6-year-old's comfort level. Rex treats each family member differently, Sarah observed during a conversation with Karen Walsh, who had become a close friend during Rex's fostering period. It's like he studies each of us and figures out exactly what we need from him. I've never seen anything like it. Dr. Emily Santos continued to monitor Rex's adjustment to domestic life, visiting the Thompson home regularly to ensure that the transition was proceeding smoothly. Her reports documented not just Rex's adaptation to family life, but also the positive impact he was having on Marcus's recovery from both his physical injuries and the psychological trauma of his near-death experience. Rex isn't just living with this family, Dr. Santos noted in her reports. He's actively contributing to Marcus's healing process. The dog seems to understand that Marcus went through a traumatic experience, and he's providing a type of therapy that no human could offer. The bond between them is facilitating Marcus's emotional recovery in ways that traditional counseling alone never could. Marcus's return to active duty with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office was delayed by several weeks due to his injuries, but Rex's presence made the recovery period much easier to bear. The German Shepherd seemed to sense when Marcus was having difficult days, struggling with memories of the accident, or frustration with his slow healing process. On those days, Rex would stay especially close, offering silent companionship and physical comfort that helped Marcus work through his emotional challenges. The story of Rex's heroism and his subsequent adoption by the Thompson family had spread far beyond Jefferson County. Local news stations picked up the story, and soon national media outlets were requesting interviews. The tale of a stray German Shepherd who saved a police officer's life, then chose his own forever family, captured the imagination of people across the country. Marcus was initially reluctant to participate in media interviews, preferring to keep his family's privacy intact. However, Sheriff Martinez convinced him that sharing Rex's story could have important benefits for animal welfare and public understanding of the intelligence and loyalty of rescue animals. The first major television interview took place at the Thompson family home, with Rex present throughout the filming. The German Shepherd's calm, intelligent demeanor in front of the cameras impressed the production crew, who noted that Rex seemed to understand that something important was happening and adjusted his behavior accordingly. During the interview, Marcus spoke about his experience in the mountains with obvious emotion, but also with deep gratitude for the animal that had saved his life. Rex didn't just rescue me from a blizzard, Marcus explained to the interviewer. He showed me what true loyalty and courage look like. He risked his own life to save a stranger, and then he stayed with me through the worst night of my life. That's not instinct, that's character. The interview included footage of Rex interacting with the Thompson children, demonstrating his gentle nature and obvious intelligence. When Emma asked Rex to perform some of the tricks she had taught him, the German Shepherd complied with obvious pleasure, showing off his ability to follow complex commands and problem-solve in real time. The television interview aired on a Thursday evening in February, exactly 3 months after Marcus's accident. The response was overwhelming. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office received hundreds of calls from people wanting to know more about Rex, offering donations for his care, and sharing their own stories of remarkable animals who had made a difference in their lives. More importantly, animal shelters across the country reported increased interest in German Shepherd adoptions following the broadcast. Rex's story had highlighted the incredible potential of rescue animals, particularly those breeds that are often overlooked due to size, training requirements, or perceived aggression. The Colorado Search and Rescue Association contacted Sheriff Martinez about the possibility of Rex returning to professional service, given his proven abilities and remarkable intelligence. However, when the proposal was presented to Marcus and his family, Rex's reaction made their response clear. When strangers arrived at the house to evaluate Rex for potential search and rescue work, the German Shepherd was polite but clearly uninterested in their training exercises. Rex went through the motions of the evaluation, demonstrating his skills and intelligence, but his heart wasn't in the work. When the evaluators finished and prepared to leave, Rex immediately returned to Marcus's side, settling down with obvious relief. Rex has already done his search and rescue work, Marcus told the disappointed evaluators. He found me in that blizzard, and now his job is to be part of our family. He's earned his retirement. The decision to keep Rex as a family companion rather than returning him to professional service was supported by Dr. Des Seb Santos and other animal behavior experts who had observed Rex's integration into the Thompson household. They noted that Rex showed no signs of missing his previous work, instead displaying all the characteristics of a dog who had found his true calling as a family guardian and companion. As spring arrived and Marcus prepared to return to active duty, Rex faced his first major test as a civilian dog. Would he be able to handle Marcus's return to the dangerous work that had nearly cost him his life? The answer came during Marcus's first night shift after his return to patrol duty. Rex spent the evening pacing restlessly through the house, checking windows and doors, and showing obvious anxiety about Marcus's absence. Sarah tried to comfort him, but the German Shepherd remained vigilant until Marcus returned home safely in the early morning hours. He's worried about you, Sarah told Marcus as Rex greeted him with obvious relief and joy. He knows what kind of work you do, and he remembers what happened the last time you went out on patrol in bad weather. This pattern continued for several weeks, with Rex showing increased anxiety whenever Marcus left for work. The solution came from an unexpected source, Emma Thompson. The 8-year-old suggested that Rex needed a job of his own, something to keep him occupied and give him purpose while Marcus was at work. Working with Dr. Santos, the family developed a routine that gave Rex specific responsibilities around the house when Marcus was on duty. The German Shepherd became the official guardian of Emma and Tyler during their father's absence, a role he took seriously and performed with obvious pride. Rex learned to help with homework time by lying quietly near the children while they worked, providing a calming presence that helped them focus. He assisted with bedtime routines by doing a security patrol of the house before settling down in the hallway between the children's bedrooms. Most importantly, Rex learned to comfort Sarah when she worried about Marcus's safety during particularly dangerous calls. The arrangement worked perfectly. Rex had a sense of purpose and responsibility that kept him calm and focused during Marcus's absences, while the family gained an additional layer of security and companionship. When Marcus returned from each shift, Rex would perform his joyful greeting ritual, then settle down with the satisfaction of having successfully protected his family during their father's absence. 6 months after joining the Thompson family, Rex was formally sworn in as an honorary member of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office during a ceremony attended by hundreds of community members. Sheriff Martinez presented Rex with a custom badge and collar, recognizing his heroism and his ongoing contribution to the department through his support of Officer Marcus Thompson. The ceremony was emotional for everyone involved, but particularly for the Morrison family, who had driven down from Fort Collins to attend. Seeing Rex in his honorary uniform, surrounded by the family he had chosen and the community that had embraced him, David and Linda Morrison knew they had made the right decision in allowing Rex to stay with the Thompsons. "He's exactly where he belongs," Linda Morrison said through tears as she watched Rex accept his honorary badge with characteristic dignity. "We loved him, but this family and this community needed him more than we did." The honorary swearing-in ceremony became an annual tradition, with Rex's badge number being retired from active use and his name being added to the department's memorial wall, alongside fallen officers and retired K-9 units. Rex had earned his place in law enforcement history not through years of training and service, but through a single act of extraordinary courage and loyalty. As Rex settled into his second year with the Thompson family, his impact on the community continued to grow. Local schools invited Marcus and Rex to visit classrooms, where Rex would demonstrate his intelligence and gentle nature, while Marcus talked about animal welfare, emergency preparedness, and the importance of never giving up hope in difficult situations. These school visits became some of Rex's favorite activities. The German Shepherd seemed to understand that he was representing all rescue animals, and he took his ambassador role seriously. Children who had been afraid of large dogs overcame their fears through interactions with Rex, while others who had been pestering their parents for pets learned about the responsibilities and rewards of animal ownership. Rex's story also inspired the creation of the Rex Thompson Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting search and rescue operations and promoting the adoption of adult dogs from animal shelters. The foundation, established with donations from people who had been moved by Rex's story, provided funding for search and rescue equipment and training, while also subsidizing adoption fees for older dogs who might otherwise struggle to find homes. Rex showed us that sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected places, Marcus said during the foundation's inaugural fundraising dinner. He was a stray dog living in the mountains, but he had more loyalty and courage than most people ever display. Every shelter has animals with that same potential. They just need someone to give them a chance. The Foundation's work extended beyond Colorado, supporting search and rescue operations and animal welfare programs across the western United States. Rex's story had resonated with people nationwide, and many wanted to contribute to causes that honored his legacy while helping other animals.